Spurred on by the very positive reactions and comments I received after I uploaded the video about the first battle of the Franco-Prussian War of 1810, I decided to add a further video that covers the twin battles that took place on the northern frontier. Whilst the Battle of the Southern Frontier was taking place, other French and Prussian divisions continued to move. By the 14th of March, the French 1st Division was facing the Prussian 1st Division, and the French Imperial Guard Division was facing the Prussian Guard Division. Before the Prussians could attack them, the French divisions went on to the offensive and initiated the twin battles of the northern frontier. The French 1st Infantry Division was commanded by General Lucas, and it comprised 1st and 2nd Infantry Regiments, 3rd and 4th Light Infantry Regiments, 1st Artillery Regiment, and 1st Hussar Regiment. It was opposed by the Prussian 1st Infantry Division, which was commanded by General von Kluck. It comprised the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th Infantry Regiments, the 1st Artillery Regiment, and the 1st Dragoon Regiment. The Prussian and French 1st Infantry Divisions faced each other across a valley that was dominated by two hills. General von Kluck, the Prussian commander, deployed his artillery unit on the hill in the centre of his army's position, with an infantry unit on each flank. He placed himself with his artillery unit, as this gave him an excellent view of the battlefield. General Lucas, his French opposite number, chose to position himself and his artillery unit on the hill that was on his left-hand flank, and deployed two infantry units to his right, one of which, the furthest to the right, was deployed into column. The French artillery unit fired at the Prussian infantry unit directly in front of it, but its fire had no effect. The French infantry column on the right advanced towards the Prussian infantry unit facing it. In reply, the Prussian artillery unit fired at the French infantry unit in column, but despite the dense target it presented, it inflicted no casualties. For a second time, the Prussian artillery unit fired at the French infantry unit in column, and again scored no casualties. Likewise, the fire from the left-hand Prussian infantry unit also failed to cause any casualties on the French infantry in column. In order to support the advance of this infantry unit, the French artillery fired at the left-hand Prussian infantry unit, but its fire proved ineffective. The French infantry unit in column charged forward and engaged the left-hand Prussian infantry unit, and inflicted a loss of one strength point on it. The Prussian artillery unit fired at its French counterpart and inflicted the loss of one strength point. Whilst this was going on, the fighting between the left-hand Prussian infantry and the French infantry unit in column continued, and things began to go badly for the Prussian infantry unit, which lost yet another strength point. General von Kluck decided he would bring forward a second infantry unit from his reserve area to support this seriously weakened unit. In response to this, the French artillery unit fired at its Prussian opponent, causing it the loss of one strength point. More importantly, its artillery fire also hit and killed General von Kluck. At the same time, the French infantry unit in column finally overcame and destroyed the Prussian infantry unit it had been fighting. General Lucas now brought forward his cavalry unit from the reserve area to support the French infantry unit in column. This allowed the French infantry time to regroup and recover from its recent success. The French artillery unit continued to fire at its Russian counterpart and destroyed it. The recently arrived left-hand Prussian infantry unit fired at the French infantry in column, but missed. The new Prussian infantry unit that had entered the battlefield from the reserve area occupied the hill that had only been occupied by the Prussian artillery. The threat of a cavalry attack forced all the Prussian infantry units to form squares. The newly formed Prussian infantry unit in square on top of the hill proved to be too tempting a target for the French artillery unit, which fired out on it and inflicted the loss of 1 strength point. Supported by the French cavalry unit, the French infantry unit in column attacked the left-hand Prussian infantry unit that was in square, but the fighting was indecisive. General Lucar now chose to bring forward a 3rd infantry unit that he'd been holding in reserve. The left-hand Prussian infantry unit in square attempted to throw back the French infantry unit that was in column but failed. And at this point, the leaderless Prussian infantry began to withdraw, leaving the French in possession of the battlefield. The battle had proved to be a costly one for the Prussians, who had not only lost the battle and a general, General von Kluck, but also 8 strength points. The French had only lost 1 strength point and were still a formidable fighting force, quite capable of continuing the invasion of Prussia. The French had won a resounding victory. Whilst this battle was going on, the French Imperial Guard division had been engaging the Prussian Guard division. The French Imperial Guard division was commanded by General Dupont. It comprised the 1st and 2nd Guard Grenadier Regiments, the 1st and 2nd Guard Chasseur Regiments, the Guard Lancer Regiment, and the Guard Horse Artillery Regiment. Its opponents were the Prussian Guard division, which was commanded by General Leto. It comprised the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th Guard Infantry Regiments, the Guard Artillery Regiment and the Guard Dragoon Regiment. General Leto, the Prussian commander, deployed his entire force on the battlefield. In the centre he placed himself alongside the Prussian artillery and cavalry units and placed 2 infantry units on either flank. In response, General Dupont, who commanded the French, deployed a double-strength column of infantry units on his left flank, an infantry unit in the centre, and his artillery and a further infantry unit on the hill on his right flank. He kept his remaining troops, his cavalry unit, in the French reserve area. The French attack began with the French artillery unit firing at the foremost right-hand Prussian infantry unit, which it hit, causing the loss of 1 strength point. The column of French infantry moved forward towards the already weakened foremost right-hand Prussian infantry unit, whilst the other 2 French infantry units advanced towards the Prussian positions. The Prussian artillery unit fired at the French infantry unit directly in front of it and caused them to lose 1 strength point. This was followed up by a charge by the Prussian cavalry unit, which charged the French infantry unit in the centre, but they were effectively beaten off with a loss of 1 strength point. The foremost left-hand Prussian infantry unit moved into the wood to fight the French infantry unit that was in there, but they lost the encounter and were forced to fall back. The French artillery unit fired at the Prussian artillery unit and missed. The column of French infantry unit advanced into contact with the weakened foremost right-hand Prussian infantry unit and destroyed it. In the centre, the French infantry unit continued its fight with the Prussian cavalry unit and was forced to withdraw. The French infantry unit in the woods fired at the foremost Prussian infantry unit, but their fire was ineffective. The Prussian cavalry unit withdrew to the Prussian reserve area to regroup and recover. This enabled the Prussian artillery unit to fire at the French infantry unit in front of it, but unfortunately they missed. The Prussian artillery unit fired at the French artillery unit and caused it to lose 1 strength point. The right-hand Prussian infantry unit charged the column of French infantry and forced them to fall back. Once again, the foremost Prussian infantry unit attempted to dislodge the French unit in the wood, and failed again, and was forced to retreat. The column of French infantry took the opportunity to regroup and recover before it made any further attacks. The French artillery unit fired at the Prussian artillery unit with the result that the Prussian artillery unit lost 1 strength point and General Leto was killed. The French infantry unit in the wood fired at the foremost left-hand Prussian infantry unit and inflicted the loss of 1 strength point. The French column of infantry charged forward and engaged the right-hand Prussian infantry unit, causing it to lose 1 strength point and to fall back into the Prussian reserve area. The French artillery unit fired at the Prussian artillery unit but missed. At this point, the French cavalry unit, which had been in reserve, moved onto the battlefield, and the French infantry unit in the wood fired at the foremost left-hand Prussian infantry unit, but again to no effect. Fearing that the French were about to win the battle, the Prussian cavalry unit charged out of the Prussian reserve area and engaged the French column of infantry. Unfortunately, they were already weakened by earlier losses and were destroyed in the process, leaving the column of French infantry in a position to move into the Prussian reserve area once they had regrouped and recovered. At this point, it was obvious that the French had won the battle, and the remains of the leaderless Prussian Guard division withdrew. The Prussian position wasn't good. They had lost a further 10 strength points, and the French had only lost 4. When combined with the losses in the other battle that had recently been fought, the Prussians had lost a total of 18 strength points, which was the equivalent of an entire division, whereas the French had only lost 5 strength points. This was yet another French victory. As a result of the battles of the northern frontier, the Prussian Guard Division and 1st Division had to fall back, leaving the way open for the French to mount a full-scale invasion of Prussia. This brings to a conclusion the second report on the Franco-Prussian War of 1810. What happens next will hopefully be covered in the next video I will be making. In the meantime, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to this video channel and tell other people about it. Until the next video comes out, keep enjoying your wargaming.